In this section, I'm going to be showing you the first Pro Mix technique of adjusting the volume of all of your tracks. Now, adjusting the volume of your tracks is a very simple process. You simply go to the mix console and click and drag on the fader of the mix channel that you want to increase or decrease the volume of. For example, some of the channels of this drum set need to be adjusted because they're just too loud. Let's take a listen to all of the drums as they are with the faders set at their default 0 position. See how loud those cymbals are, including the hi-hat cymbal? Well, all of the cymbals are captured on the overhead microphones, so these overhead channels right here, the left and right overhead channels, need some volume adjustment, so I'm going to start turning these down. Until it tames the output of the cymbals. But now we can hear that the hi-hat cymbal is still awfully darn loud. And the ride cymbal currently is not playing, but chances are it's going to be loud too. And I actually want to hear a little bit more of the bass drum, so instead of turning up the bass drums, I'm actually going to turn down the snare drums a little bit. And that de-emphasis of certain tracks is going to make the other tracks sound louder. Now it starts to sound quite a bit more balanced. So adjusting the volume of tracks is not too complicated, so I'm going to show you some other tricks that you can use to make adjusting volumes easier. The first one is adjusting the fine control of the volume faders of the mix console. Typically, when you click and drag a fader up and down, it moves at the same speed as the mouse cursor. So there's a very broad range of volume adjustment that you can make. However, sometimes it's too broad. Sometimes you just want to move a fader a little bit. So what you can do is hold down the Shift key on your computer keyboard, and then when you click and drag on a fader, you'll notice that the fader moves in much smaller increments. See how much higher the mouse cursor is now than the fader? If I drag that mouse down with the Shift key enabled, then I get even finer adjustments on that control. So instead of moving things in big chunks, the Shift key being held down allows you to make very fine adjustments to the volume faders. And then let me show you how to link channels together. And let's use the tom-tom channels over here, toms 1, 2, and 3. And what linking the channels will do is allow the same adjustments on one channel to be applied to all of the other channels as well. So I'm going to click on the volume meter of this particular track, and then I'm going to shift click on the first tom-tom track so that all of those channels are selected. Then I'm going to right or control click on any of the faders and choose link selected channels. And the next thing we're going to see is the link settings. Now, by default, what's going to get linked are the volume faders and the send effects and the audio routing. But you could also link together the pan control, EQ, dynamics, inserts, mute, solo, and listen, and the automation read and write. But for right now, I'm just going to leave the routing, sends, and volume, which are the default settings. And now, whenever I select or move any of those faders of any of those linked channels, they'll all move. See, if I move tom-tom channel number 3, then they all get adjusted at the exact same level. And if I select any of those tracks, they all become selected. See, if I select tom track number 1, then they all get selected. And then if you ever needed to unlink those channels, you can just right or control click on a linked fader and choose unlink selected channels. Now, there's also a way to temporarily link the faders themselves, and that's through doing a Q link. And you can do that by selecting a series of channels that you'd like linked together. Then while you're holding the Shift key, you can also hold down the Alt or Option key, and now when you move any of the faders, they all move. But then if you lift off of Shift and Alt or Option, then they're not linked anymore. So that's how you can quickly link together a series of channels. So if we wanted to quickly link all of the faders of the drums, let's click the first channel, then shift click the last channel, and then while holding down Shift and Alt or Option, now if I move any of the faders, they'll all move, and they'll all move relative to their original positions. And then when I lift off of Shift and Alt or Option, now even though they're still selected, they're no longer quick linked together. So that's how you can make volume adjustments in the mix console, but in the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use a compressor.